There have been a lot of very dramatic developments since I made my last video on this channel on the Ethiopian Airlines incident last Sunday. For example, the Americans finally grounded these Max 8 aircraft. Indeed, Max 8s and Max 9s by executive order from President Trump. But what led to that very sudden, unexpected decision is even more interesting. You see, what happened is that the Canadians reviewed satellite imaging, and they said that from their review, wait for this one, they saw evidence that suggests that the Ethiopian Airlines air crash was very similar to the one that happened in Indonesia, involving the same aircraft. And so they promptly banned the Boeing Max 8 from the airspace. Now, a quick aside, in the second part of this video, I shall tackle a very fascinating topic. You see, air safety is on the minds of very many people across the globe after the events in Ethiopia on Sunday. And many people are scared to fly, quite rightly so. However, there's some very interesting information that you need to know. It is possible to survive from some of these air crash accidents, and even the most terrible ones. Like the incident of where somebody survived after falling 33,000 feet. And they survived. The aircraft exploded. She was thrown off the aircraft, fell. You know, at 33,000 feet, you can't breathe. Therefore she went unconscious. She fell down 10,000 feet where the air is thinner, so you can actually breathe. And she hit the ground and survived. I kid you not. Well, I'm sure you'll look forward to that. We'll tackle that in a bit. Now, I'll be extremely surprised if Congress in the United States does not summon the FAA and indeed Boeing officials to explain a few things. Because word has leaked out that the FAA and Boeing were discussing changes in the Max 8 aircraft after the Indonesian crash. Yes, even before the final report on the Indonesian air accident, which took place in October, has come out, Boeing already taking action to fix what they obviously suspected was the cause of the accident. But apparently, they were slowed down by this back and forth with the FAA. They couldn't agree on how wide-ranging the changes that were going to be made would be. Now, obviously, this is the kind of information that those involved would never have wanted to come out to the public. At least not after two very similar tragedies involving the same aircraft had occurred, because it raises some very disturbing issues. For instance, one would have thought that after a flaw, like that one, had been identified by Boeing, the right thing to do would have been to ground all the aircrafts until they fixed that particular issue. Indeed, if they had done that, the 157 lives lost in Ethiopia last Sunday, all those guys would still be alive. They'd still be with us. In my view, the relationship between the FAA and Boeing, both American, is very unholy. More so because the entire world, all of us on the globe, put our lives in the hands of the FAA. But sadly, it seems that commercial and patriotic interests overrule safety for the world. Very, very sad. Going forward, I think people are going to be very, very wary of new aircrafts entering the market. This is in sharp contrast to the blind faith we have all had whenever a new aircraft is launched. People are always excited. Indeed, even the Max 8 is going to have a major problem, regaining the confidence of the public. Now, it is also super interesting the way the Ethiopian authorities have handled this crisis, especially the investigations. Now, normally, the black box, the data recorder and the voice data recorder, would have ended up in the United States for the initial analysis. But the Ethiopians would have none of that. So the black boxes are headed to France. Fascinatingly, France is the headquarters of Boeing's competitor, Airbus. Now, would you blame the Ethiopians, especially after what we have seen happening since the accident? And especially the initial FAA ruling that the plane is safe. That they've ordered Boeing to make changes, but the plane is safe. Which, as I said in an earlier video, that doesn't make sense. Why order changes if you're sure the aircraft is safe? Anyway, it seems that the Ethiopians, very wise chaps, want to make sure that the truth comes out and that we don't end up with the usual scapegoat, pilot error. And in this case, it happened in Africa. So it must be pilot error. That's how very many people think in the world. And it was predictable that efforts were going to be made to ensure that the public are convinced what happened in Ethiopia and what happened in Indonesia are very different. Although even as investigations are ongoing, it is increasingly clear that those two crashes were very, very similar. The latest indication being what the Canadians found out from satellite images, and which has caused them to ground this aircraft. Now, one of the things that has really horrified me about this Ethiopian accident, and I'm sure will horrify anybody who comes to this realization, is the last 20 seconds of the lives of those involved. That is my estimation of how long it took the aircraft to fall from the last recorded altitude of slightly over 8,000 feet and right to the ground. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen. I'm going to show you a clip of what an expert, a very well-known industry expert, says. And of course, I won't name him, for reasons I'll not tell you. But most of you are going to recognize him immediately. Just take in the clip, and then I'll be back.
So the trend's fairly powerful. The Lion Air airplane, the Max, when it introduces its nose down command, it runs for 10 seconds. And then 5 seconds later, if it's not happy, it will do it again. Now, in theory, if you yank back on it, there should be a brake, a lock that goes in place. For whatever reason, the Lion Air crew apparently did not do that. The airplane trimmed full nose down from 5,000 feet.
And they didn't break it.
The elevator you do not have elevator authority to stop it. So the airplane basically does this. The last data, which is ADS-B output data, shows a descent rate in excess of 30,000 feet a minute.
30,000? Wow.
Oh, it's going straight down.
I know.
That's like
And it means the power's up, and the airspeed, the ground speed was 380 knots at impact.
Well, you heard him. 30,000 feet per minute. That is what the data told them about the Indonesian crash. And so far, the Ethiopian one seems to be very similar. I can't think of a more horrible way to die. And once again, my heart goes out to all those relatives, friends, of those involved in this tragedy that happened in Ethiopia on Sunday, but has affected the entire world. Now, I find it very fascinating. This life is very interesting and always full of surprises and things that cannot be explained. Now, slightly closer to Addis Ababa, closer than Addis Ababa is to Nairobi, which was the destination of the ill-fated aircraft, is a small, sleepy town in Kenya called Kakamega. About 3 days after the tragic loss of lives in Addis Ababa, in this small Kenyan town, a woman delivered 5 children, quintuples. When one of these kids grows up and somebody says, "Hey, I'm a twin," this young boy or young girl will say, "Hey, I'm a quintuplet. Yeah. Mind-boggling. The woman's name, Evelyn Namukula. Yeah, I think that's how it's pronounced. Gave birth by cesarean section to 2 boys and 3 girls. And before she gave birth most recently, she already had 4 children, and 2 of them are twins. Now, according to doctors, an earlier ultrasound before she gave birth had indicated that she was carrying 3 children. But she actually ended up delivering 5. Yeah. Even more fascinating, all the children are in good health. Yeah, and they weigh between 1.2 kilograms and 1.6 kilograms. Now, men, especially those who are not doctors, may not understand this, but women will immediately. What this means is that this Kenyan woman was carrying in her womb about 6 kilos. Wow! Now, they say Africans are naturally strong, but this is beyond this is beyond understanding, according to me. Now, in poverty-stricken Africa, you would expect a statement of regret. But no, what the woman actually said, and I quote her, "I am happy and I thank God for blessing me with 5 children at once. We have many people who would want to have children, but they're unable to get due to health challenges," she said. And I have to agree with her. Yeah, believe it or not, I am a firm believer of what some would call backward thinking in Africa. And I've also seen this practically in my own life. Every child born comes with their own provision. I know many of you will not agree with me, but I believe it is true. Children, newborn children, even change the destiny of their families. Not when they grow up, right after they're born. And I'm saying this fully aware of the fact that here we are talking about diapers times 5, milk bottle times 5. Everything has to be multiplied by 5, which financially is obviously a challenge. And don't forget, the woman now has 9 children. Now, giving birth to 5 children at the same time, of course, is extremely rare. Yeah, but the timing of this particular event, so close to the tragedy in Ethiopia, crossed my mind. Anyway, while you digest that, we'll go for a brief commercial break, and when we come back, I will tell you how people have survived from falling from 33,000 feet in the air. Don't go away. Welcome back. A woman called Vesna Vulovchik, who was a flight attendant, was flying in Yugoslav Airlines when the plane blew up at 33,000 feet. Apparently, there had been a bomb which had been planted in the DC-10 she was flying in. It was later blamed on Croatian separatists, and Vesna was serving refreshments to the passengers at the time the bomb went off. And she, of course, lost consciousness immediately. When she woke up, she was on a snow-covered mountain, and she was the only survivor. Now, she suffered some mild brain damage, which caused her to lose her memory. So initially, she couldn't remember anything, although she later fully recovered. But when she was finally told what had happened to her, wait for this one, she almost died of shock. And indeed, this incident is shocking. She didn't die from the initial explosion. She did not die from the speed at which she fell, approximately 200 miles per hour. And she did not die from impact. Although the thick snow on the mountain, of course, cushioned her fall, but still, falling from 33,000 feet? Mind-boggling, but true. And strange enough, she did not fear flying. In fact, she resumed her job after she recovered. And she finally passed on 3 years ago in 2016. And it wasn't from an air crash accident. If you ask me, I don't think her world record, because that's a world record, no other human being has fallen 33,000 feet and survived, ever. But if you ask me, that is one record I don't think will ever be broken. And for those who believe in miracles, this has to be it. This incident, of course, happened in 1972. Now, more recently, in 2009, a young 13-year-old schoolgirl named Bahia Baya Bakari was the only survivor when an Airbus A310 hit the sea, Yemenia Airways. All the other 152 passengers died. She was the only survivor. She was thrown clear when the aircraft hit the sea, and she clung to debris for 13 hours in very choppy waters before she was rescued. She suffered cuts, bruises, a broken collarbone, and burns on her knees. But that was it. Unbelievable. And it has also happened in Africa. In 2003, Mohammed El Fateh Osman, a 3-year-old, was the sole survivor of a crash over Sudan that killed 116 people. A nomad came across him lying on a fallen tree, relatively uninjured. In 1995, Erika Delgado, a 9-year-old girl, was the only survivor on an aircraft that crashed in Bogota, Colombia. The Intercontinental Airlines plane exploded in midair. She landed on a heap of seaweed near a swamp, and obviously that broke her fall. The other 52 passengers on board perished. But all this young girl had was a broken arm. In 2006, a Slovak aircraft with 43 people on board crashed in a forested terrain near a Hungarian village called Hegyse. The sole survivor, Martin Farkas, was found barely injured in the aircraft's lavatory. He had been saved by a call of nature because the lavatory area in the aircraft had very little damage, and probably that's the reason why they survived. Saved by a call of nature. That is just mind-boggling. But I have to end this with what I consider the most fascinating survival story from an aircraft crash. Julianne Kopke was a 17-year-old schoolgirl traveling with her mother to Lima when lightning struck the aircraft. There was an explosion, and the next thing she knew, she was in the air, strapped to a seat at 10,000 feet. Her final thought before she passed out was that the rainforest below looked like broccoli. When she recovered consciousness, it was morning, in the Peruvian jungle. And she was still strapped to a seat. Her arms and legs were gashed, and she had a broken collarbone. But apart from that, miraculously, she was fine. And the only survivor amongst the 92 on board. She quickly realized where the plane had fallen was very hidden. So being found was a remote possibility. And she heard the sound of running water. So she thought to herself, if she followed that running water, small river, she would eventually come to some human settlement where she could get help. So with her injuries, she slowly walked. And she walked for 10 days. Her survival instincts, of course, took over. She drank dirty water to stay alive. And then she also scooped the maggots from her wounds. That was her food. She later became a professor of biology based in Germany. And what she said many years later is worth quoting here. She said, "The accident changed me completely. I have learned that life is precious, that it can be taken from you at any moment. I came so close to death then that everyday stress no longer affects me. Trivial things don't worry me anymore." Very wise words indeed. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.